Welcome back to KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. It's now time for the studio discussion, all to do with the latest developments that are playing out in the country. Matters to do with politics and governance. I have sharp minds in studio. It's Manel, but do forgive us. Ashley Mazuri was breaking the Manel a little bit earlier on. Allow me to introduce my esteemed guests, joined on my right by Dismas Mukua, who's a political risk analyst. It's been a while. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thanks for your time. Equally joined by media and political communication strategist Hesbon Owila. It's great to have you with us. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thanks for your time. Equally joined by Alenga Torosted, who's a governance expert. It's great to have you with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, JC.
Asanteni sana. Let's take a look at some of the issues we'll be canvassing. We'll first start off with the Juja Member of Parliament, George Koimburi's issues. He's currently in hospital, of course, after that small predicament we saw as he was allegedly abducted on Sunday, returned after 12 hours, and that marked the start of the political conversations around security for waheshimiwa, quote unquote, and equally the matters to do with abductions in the country. That was the front page of the Standard today, sliding into anarchy, or are we? That's the question I'll be posing to my panelists. But before I pose the questions, let's just listen in to some of the sentiments that have been shared. Just today, the police mentioned that they claim this abduction could be staged, and they reaffirmed their commitment to thoroughly investigate the matter. As I mentioned earlier on, the Member of Parliament is still in hospital after that 12-hour ordeal. Here are some sentiments shared by opposition leaders, including the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja. Listen in.
We have one instrument, Constitution of Kenya 2010. And all public officers, from William Ruto to the police constables, must know that be held accountable under the Constitution.
The other day that another member was shot and killed. Now again, yesterday or Sunday, another one is kidnapped, abducted, left for the dead. Surely, we expect no less than the House adjourning to discuss the matter of rising insecurity.
The one-term movement is unstoppable, and there's nothing the president can do. He can kill these leaders, he can abduct them, he can torture them, but he cannot do that to all the people of Kenya.
Upon comparing vegetations and road dimensions at the scene with those in the video, it was established that the two did not match.
Okay, some sentiment shared all to do with that particular matter facing the Juja Member of Parliament. As we mentioned, investigations are ongoing. We'll try not wade into the waters that are being investigated, but let's just take a look at the interpretation, at least the optics, what exactly it means. Moko, I'd like to begin with you. What's your interpretation? Is this a crackdown on dissenting voices, as mentioned by the opposition leaders? Because according to some, the optics seem to point towards that there's freedom of expression, but there's no freedom after expression.
You know, that one reminds people about what used to happen in Uganda when it was under the dictatorship of Idi Amin. That I told people, you can say whatever you want to say, you got the freedom, but no guarantees after you've said that. But talking about life and property in Kenya, it's a very, very serious issue. Yeah. And the one for this particular MP gets very complicated, because the initial report suggests that it was an abduction, but the people with the responsibility, the law enforcement officers, are saying, wait a minute, they suspect that it could be self-abduction. Now, the reason why it gets complicated, the police have already pronounced themselves that they suspect it was a self-abduction, and in fact, they were looking for him. They wanted to arrest him on some criminal matters. Now that they've already pronounced themselves on this matter, then they proceed to say that investigations are still ongoing. So one begins to wonder, what are you going to investigate if you've already pronounced yourself? And again, because we've experienced politics for a long time in Kenya, Africa, and the world, there's also a probability that a number of politicians stage a bit of drama to elicit public sympathy. and out of it grow political capital. So while that probability does exist, not necessarily for Honorable Koimburi, but politicians do that. Now, the dilemma for Kenyans is, because the police are suggesting that it was a self-abduction, and they're the ones who are going to do investigations, so one wonders whether they will depart from the initial statement. And you would recall that in the past, when you've had similar situations, people have called for an independent body to come and do the investigations. So one wonders whether, again, we are going to invite the Scotland Yard to come and give us an independent opinion, because right now there is a trust deficit from most of the government institutions. So majority of people, right now, if the law enforcement officers tell you during the day that the sky is blue, you may not believe it given their track record. But one would suggest that maybe we get an independent body, like the Speaker of the National Assembly suggested, that maybe Parliament should take part in this so that Kenyans can believe in the outcome.
Okay, definitely. The Speaker mentioned that they'll be looking into the issues surrounding his abduction. But husband, as you come in, are security agencies being used to settle political scores?
I think to a large extent, whether they are being used or not, you realize that that's a case that someone can make.
Yeah.
Because the optics don't really favor the establishment. There is a perception that a lot of these things are happening to people who have alternative or dissenting voices. And I think enough times people within the establishment have pronounced themselves in a manner likely to suggest that they know more, than the security agencies. We've heard the president talk about anyone who had been abducted, everyone, has been released to their families, coming from a position of there have been no abductions to saying that we've released all of them. Pretty much, speaking to the fears that people have that probably it is the establishment. And I think, if I may echo what Dismas has said, I think the biggest problem right now is not that there is crackdown or there is, a situation where we are sinking into anarchy.
Yeah.
I think sinking into anarchy is not really what is happening, but what is happening is slightly a lot more worse, that we are sinking into an information disorder dispensation, where it doesn't matter who is saying it, it doesn't matter who is taking a position, there is an equally dissenting opinion over it. So much so that whether the member of parliament for Juja abducted himself or not, we will never know. The investigations by the security agencies will come out from a position of they knew why he disappeared. It was self-abduction, to a point where they are still doing investigation. And then eventually no one will know what is happening. And the sad situation is that that has become like the norm, that anything that comes out is contested. And we are creating a situation where the sources of credible information are becoming more and more contestable. So much so that the public is put in this space where you can't believe anything and you can't dispute anything. It is a question of which side are you? Then believe that side. And I think that's what politicians have done to us. We've had instances where they've abducted themselves, so you can't rule that out. But we also live in a dispensation where we know there has been serious crackdown on dissenting voices.
Okay. Alenga, as you come in, talk to us about trying to elicit sympathy from the public, because we've had the narrative time and time again, and it's not the first time that the former deputy president is attracting chaos. We well know of the DCP unveiling. We well know of some of the church services he's attended. Equally, some of the functions he's been in attendance. There's been a semblance of uncertainty when it comes to the security situation. I was hosting the deputy party leader just the other day, and he mentioned that they usually invite or inform the security agencies that they'll have an event here and here. They need some security organized, but at the end of the day, they rarely see any police officers during these events. Well, what's your take on this matter?
I think observing it in the entire perspective of the politics that we have at the moment, we would really question the role of the police in terms of maintaining law and order and also being with the upper hand to have information to know what is going on. Because if the police frequently come to us and discount narratives by other people, and they say so-and-so has kidnapped themselves, so-and-so has planned violence. So the question is, where were they? Because we expect if they have that capacity to notice that somebody is planning violence against themselves, then they should not come and tell us that post facto. They are supposed to arrest the situation earlier before it happens and then tell us as citizens, this is what we discovered was being planned and we had to thwart the plans. That's how we can then grow confidence in them. But when they always come to tell us this is what happened, we are wondering, you knew that was happening, but you let it flourish, and then later on you come and tell us. I think, just like Dismas said earlier on, that most of these agencies have lost trust from the people, and we are at a situation where every agency that we'd have trusted is continually disappoints Kenyans. And at this level, then it becomes difficult for us to actually, as common citizens on the street, to be sure of the public goods that we expect from government, because world over, governments exist to offer three goods, that is protection of life, protection of liberties, and protection of property. If these three things are not provided for, then citizens have no reason to obey that form of government, whichever it may be. And that is what we continually see. If, for instance, the matter of Koimburi, the MP for Juja, if we saw him in the video clips being seized from the streets in broad daylight, and then we are told this is him who planned this against himself, but then the police themselves were around and they were supposed to be high alert on that situation, and then if it is Koimburi that was abducting himself, the police would have actually raised a roadblock somewhere and held him in the process of abducting himself, and then tell Kenyans, we just got this citizen trying to abduct himself and we are trying to deliver him to his family. That would be believable.
Okay, interesting. Well, we'll see what the investigation yields. Of course, the police are seized of that particular matter, but I'd like to draw your attention to yet another issue that's playing out in the public gallery, all to do with an unprecedented competition on Mount Kenya region to determine who exactly is the king of the airwaves. Recently, Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki turned to artists from the restive Mount Kenya region. That was on Friday last week, all in a bid to help him penetrate the soul of the region. And we saw a clapback right after that meeting was held. In quick response, the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua branded the artists as traitors and told them that the public could stop listening to their music if they don't apologize. So let's just listen into some of the sentiments that have been shared, but it's equally proper to note that Dennis Itumbi, the head of the Presidential Special Projects, issued a scathing rebuttal, accusing Gachagua of political intimidation and hypocrisy. Here's some of the sentiments that have been shared in that particular context. Listen in.
We thank the government for giving us the Ministry of Youth, Sports and the Creative Economy, which the other two, that is the Department of Youth and Sports, they are complete, but the Department of Creative Economy is just hollow.
Sisi ambao tuko kwa serikali, tuko na uwezo wa kusuluhisha kama mambo mnaniambia ya industry. It is my business to go out of my way, to use my influence, the position I have to resolve those issues.
Waombe msamaha. Wasipoomba msamaha, tuwache kusikiza nyimbo zao. Number 2, zile entertainment joint wanaenda, wasiitwe huko tena. Na wewe kama ni mwenye club, ukiita huyo mtu, customers wahame, waende pahali ingine. Tena ile mtandao, you unfollow them.
Una lecture kila mtu, una lecture mwanamuziki, una lecture mwanasiasa, una lecture kila mtu. Kwani wewe ni Mungu? Ukitaka tuheshimiane. Heshima ni mara mbili. Utuheshimu, tukuheshimu. Usipotuheshimu, my friend, tutakanyang'ana na wewe, my friend.
Sasa niko na deputy. Huyu anaelewa barabara, anajua stima, anajua mpango ya serikali ya SHA, ni mtu mwadilifu. That is how we are going to change Kenya. I am very proud that I have a deputy who understands.
Okay, interesting sentiments right there from the leaders. The last one by President William Ruto, just affirming how Kindiki is favorable for that particular position, the deputy president's position. We'll get to react to that, but let's start with the place of art in politics. Aleng, I'd like to begin with you, because this isn't a new phenomenon. Music has always been a powerful tool when it comes to a political landscape. Messages are sent through songs, especially political messages. But what is art's true place when you talk about the implications of when artists actually get involved in political endorsements?
I think art is politics in itself because it's full of expression, it's full of ideas, and it's full of visualization and perspectives. However, in our space, art is beginning to be used for political gains, and usually, I think artists have a following. And it goes without saying that if they are identified by a certain political figure, then their following is likely to gravitate towards that particular figure. But it's not new in politics. You're saying political leaders will want to use artists, they will want to use people in academia, they want to use religious leaders. They are always looking for a person that already has a following. So in our situation, then it is important for the artists to strike a balance between educating society in terms of good governance, in terms of actualizing the aspirations of the country and those of the citizens, and serving the government of the day to propagate their messaging. Okay. So then it would call for a moral standpoint for somebody to ask themselves, if I am identifying with this government, is this government first of all delivering to the people that listen to my music, the people that laugh at my jokes, the people that buy my paintings and all that? Is it first of all answering to the questions that these people have? So that before I pontificate that kind of regime, is it a regime that is worth that, So I think also the optics of you being bundled in the deputy president's residence, and that is a place where there's no contrary opinion. If you are invited, you're invited at his terms, and you have to behave. So we do not really expect that there will be a lot of logical conversations there, a lot of sifting through ideals and seeing what works for the country. It's basically listen to him, and then at the end of the day, get your envelope and go away.
Okay. Well, the DP was in Madeira today, I think, and he said he'll be looking into the earnings of artists who are underpaid, according to him. But Hesbon, as you come in, talk to us about this betrayal narrative, because the DCP party leader, Rigathi Gachagua, said that this is betrayal, and it implied a deeply entrenched sense of political ownership and allegiance over artists, especially from the Mount Kenya region. How does this political shaming attempt to enforce political discipline?
Well, that's fairly loaded. But let me just say that I think the former deputy president is probably thinking that we live in some village and he's a village head and he has control over everyone, and he can summon everyone to his attention and to pay allegiance to him, which is very unfortunate and probably confirms the reason why Parliament had to send him home. As Kenyans, you realize that, again, we find ourselves in a very precarious position where the president is talking about an able deputy president, and there is an elected deputy president who was impeached, and the difference between the two seems to be non-existent. There is nothing distinguishing the current deputy president as serving the interest of Kenyans or the president when all he is doing, he is appropriating, a group of people who seem to be having influence in the name of artists and parading them as serving the interest of artists. Those are not artists. Those are just Mount Kenya artists. And I think Kenya is bigger than Mount Kenya. So when you have some resources whose origin you don't know, and you want to use them to appropriate influence in a particular region, and your boss is busy saying that you're doing a good job, it is very unfortunate. But let me say this, artists have a very significant role in any society, not just a democratic society. And it goes way back to the days of, the Greek philosophers. Plato, for instance, talks about there's no art for art's sake. So all those musicians, if they are real artists, they're not doing music, they're not doing comedy, they're not doing whatever they're doing for the sake of it. That an artist is supposed to moralize the society. And the extent to which an artist moralizes the society depends on the weight of public interest upon which they stand. And the moment you align yourself with a political formation, then you lose that weight of public interest. And it doesn't matter how you want to clothe it, that you've been given a state department called the State of Creative Economies, whatever it is called. That is not to dish out handouts to artists. It's supposed to create an enabling infrastructure that will build an industry that will create jobs for people irrespective of where they are. So on the one hand, you want to say that it is unfortunate you have the likes of Rigathi Gachagua speak to people who've built a career in the art industry as if he's a village elder speaking to common wages along the road. But on the other hand, it is even equally unfortunate when you have someone who has the office now bringing artists simply for purposes of building clout and showing himself to be the kingpin of Mount Kenya. And if you ask me, if those are their struggles, they will never rise anywhere close to being anything close to a kingpin.
Okay, Dismas, before you come in, we have to take a short break. I know you're doing press-ups, but as we come back, we'll be taking a look at the accountability of these empowerment programs, because at the end of the day, as has been highlighted by one of the panelists, we don't know where this money is coming from that's being handed over to artists in the name of empowerment. Where exactly is it coming from? Can it serve better if it's put through structured mechanisms? Talk about the Youth Empowerment Fund, talk about the Music Copyright Society of Kenya. We'll be taking a look at that, including the teeth between Kenya and Tanzania, right after the break. Stay with us.